Hey, what's going on everybody? Josh, starterandgetterbusiness.com. Today we are doing some custom box downspouts, and there's not a whole lot of people that know how to do these, so I wanted to share with you. Been doing them for quite a while now, probably 15 years. I learned a lot doing it all the hard way, so hopefully I can help you guys out with this one. We have a house here with 6-inch box gutters with our 6-inch box gutter machine, and we're going to be doing some 4x4 open face downspouts on it. So let's get going. So we have this stuff bent up by a sheet metal shop, a local one, and we had this made 4x4, and this is the look the customer was looking for. So it's 4x4, 4 inches by 4 inches, 1 inch lip on each face, and then a 1/2 inch hem, which is that little bent over part there. So you basically just get this stuff in 10 footers. It's all plastic wrapped. Peel the plastic off, and then the hard part about this is you have to make all your joints. So not very much fun, but some people really like the look, and you just got to charge for it. So this is just a scrap that I had in the trailer, but how we did all these holes is we needed a 4x4 flapped hole to dump water into that downspout and have something to attach to. So I made we had quite a few downspouts in this place, so we just made a 4x4 square template, and then we marked where we needed our downspout, just put the template in there and traced it, drilled a 2 3/8 hole in the middle, and you can do whatever size hole, but and then you just use your tin snips to cut to each corner from the inside, and then just use some flat pliers to bend them all down as flaps, so that way you can have something to connect your downspout to, and it just flows water right out of that gutter. So yeah, should work good. So how I like to do this is I kind of look at the house and see how far I want to drop this down. So I'll get a measurement on that, and you can I try to kind of make it pretty consistent on the whole house. So I'm probably gonna go like a 6-inch drop on this one. And then I'll measure how far out this eave is. 47 3/4. So I got 6 and 47 3/4. So I'll show you guys how to make this crossover next. All right, so I start by making my first mark here. I'll make my first elbow basically. So this stuff sets up on, the crossover will be setting like this. So basically we're trying to make a bend that pops up to hook up to the outlet. So I'll make a pencil line right at my 6 mark, and I'll just mark all the way around this thing so I have a nice square line to start at. And then this also has parts that sleeve in, just like a crimped end of a standard downspout. So I'm going to be sleeving this top part into this layer of metal. So you want to think about that when you cut your, we're cutting like a pie out of this to fold an elbow. So I usually use a good angle for these is like 35 degrees. So I just use my speed square and then do a mark at 35 degrees back to the back part of this is what's going to stay connected, so it's going to fold on that. So I just traced out my pie basically, and I'll do that to both sides. And I like to have both left and right snips for doing this, and I'll show you why. So I cut on both those lines, so that worked good for this. And that also pinches the tin to where this side will fold in to that lower side easier. So now I use these left-handed snips, and the reason for the left is so they fit onto this cut. And at the very end, I kind of flare the cut a little bit. And that gives you a little bit more overlap right at that corner, because these joints leak fairly easily. So, okay, so I got that side done. Go back to the other side. Switch, 10 steps a lot doing this there. And I kind of shoot for about a 1/4 inch with that flare cut. I shoot for about a 1/4 inch of overlap. So now we have both of those cut. And that's how that first elbow goes together. Boom. It's all overlapped. So now I'll just this particular downspout, I'm just using zip screws. You can use rivets, whatever, but that's what we're using on this job. So the thing to look for when you're bending this up is to make sure that this is nice and square. So you kind of look at the bottom and make sure that top is lined up with the bottom. And you can change the lengths of how far that each side folds in to make it square, kind of squared up. So now you can kind of see the point of my overlap there. Gives it just a little bit extra material to make sure that water doesn't leak out of those corners. So now the best way, this is the easiest way to do it by yourself. If you have somebody to help you, you can kind of like hold it up there and mark where this is going to hit the wall. But when you're by yourself, it's really hard to do that because these are fairly heavy. So the reason I took that second measurement, the 47 3/4, is now I can hold this on a straight edge. And so I'm basically like pretending this is a wall, or just lining up this downspout straight with that. And then I just come down to my second measurement, that 47 3/4. And then I'll mark this elbow at that. So same thing on this one, do a square cut all the way around. And you can use a chop saw for these or whatever, but they're really loud to cut. So I've always kind of just done them with tin snips. They're hollow and they just like echo noise, and cutting the steel is just pretty loud. So the way that I found best to cut these is just to do relief cuts where your snips can go through. So what I'll do is just cut on my line until I hit a bend, and then I'll just do a relief cut that my snips can pop through. And you gotta be careful, these things are not very friendly. Make sure you're wearing gloves when you do this. Okay, so there's the basic layout of the crossover. So now, this isn't quite what we need it to be. This up here is gonna hit the wall, but down here, we need to bend this down a little bit in order to make sure this flows into that lower downspout really well. So in order to do that, our top angle was at a 35 degree. So this is also going to be a 35 degree. So what I'll do is mark dip 35, and that tells us this is where the lower downspout is going to come in and hit. It's going to set just like this. So this is upside down right now, but the back of the downspout will be here and the front of the downspout will be here. So somewhere right, you don't want to, right now it's too choked down, so there's only about, an inch gap here between the back of the downspout and this, so it'll clog up really easy. So you want to bend a flap that diverts water into that lower downspout and keeps good flow going so it doesn't clog up. Okay, so there's my flap. You can use flat pliers to do this or whatever, but I'll just use my hands on this one. And you want that to be when you kind of set that up, what you're looking for is for this to be square or plumb, and then you want this to be kicking out back into the back of the downspout a little bit, just to make sure that water doesn't splash out the front. And there's a couple different ways to do this. Sometimes you can make a face plate. I'll show you that when I do the downspout, but with the way this job is working, this is going to work the best for this situation. So I also had this 2-inch hemmed strap made to, this is like, I call it a cleat. So they are cleats that you space evenly on the face of the downspout that help support that C-shaped downspout in the front. So it gives you still that open face look, but supports the front for, you know, ice and snow, and keeps everything looking straight. So I'll just cut this strap just a little bit less. Our downspout's 4x4, so I'm going a little bit less because it's going on the inside. So I went 3 7/8. So I'll go ahead and cut a few of these guys. Usually what I'll do is just kind of make a template, throw it on there, and all these cuts are going to be hidden, so they don't have to be perfect. All right, so we're going to do one on this crossover. These crossovers are fairly flimsy up here, so I like to put a strap up here in the top of it to keep all this looking square, and then down here I tie this into the top back of the down tube, and that supports this part. So you just kind of slip those inside. And this metal, this is a 24 gauge, so it's not the easiest to deal with, but, and you can kind of adjust the width of your face. So like if your eyes aren't treating you very good one day, as far as the eyeball and stuff, you can just measure this, hold it at 4, and then tack that guy. Okay, so my crossover's made. I'm going to throw it on here and get a mark of where to put my downspout. So this gutter is setting a little bit, yeah, just like that. So I'm just making a mark of where to put the top of my down tube. And I'll go ahead and put that on the wall first, and then just, it makes it really easy for one guy to just tack this up and then pop this in, and it makes it easier to attach the top. Because a lot of times it takes a little bit of finessing everything to make the top look really good. So you can kind of pull the gutter down, zip screw it, rivet it together. So now we'll make that down tube now that we got our mark on our siding. So I'll just measure down to about where I want my first bend down there, my lower elbow, and then to my mark, so 1/10. Okay, so we have our down tube cut to length, and now we need to cut a bevel in the face of this to allow the crossover to pop into the top of this. So our top angle was 35. I like to make these a few degrees bigger. So like there's 35. If I go 3 degrees bigger, it opens this up a little bit and gives you a little bit more room for air. So I like to do that. So I'm going 38. Mark both sides. Then we'll just cut those off. So this particular job, they wanted, most of this open face stuff is for commercial, you know, for heavy water loads and ice. And this particular one, the inside of this metal is white and the outside's dark bronze, and so they didn't like seeing that white on the inside. So we had some color, like a color insert made that slides right into this. So we slid that color insert in. We're going to trim it the same length as the down tube, and then it'll all be colored. It'll look good. So one thing to keep in mind when I'm lifting this up to my mark I made earlier, and you want to keep in mind, I kind of stood back and made sure I'm going to be straight on this trim. So this hole is punched 3/4 inset on this trim, and so I'm holding this 3/4 inset. Got it. Cool. So now that this is on the wall, This is going to help me. I can just rest the bottom of the crossover into that and then deal with this situation up here. These are sometimes hard to get straight and everything, so it's nice to have two hands to be able to get it all. And if you try to put it on beforehand, it's a lot of, this thing weighs a lot, so it's a lot of weight just dangling off of this outlet. So this is the way I like to do them. So I got this up, and with the thickness of this insert and the metal here, I was a little bit farther out than I wanted to be on the outlet, so I'm just going to trim just this top corner up to help it set into the wall a little further. These box downspouts are not for the faint of heart. They're a different breed, that's for sure. Look at that, beautiful. Sometimes these don't fit quite perfect on these X's, and the water will flow fine in there, but that light is kind of irritating sometimes. So a lot of times what I'll do, and it actually strengthens up the whole X punch. So what I'll do is just take a dab of glue and put one dab on each corner of the X, and that kind of fixes that problem. Done. This is just one way to do these, but these cleats, I'm going in here with this, and this first one, I kind of pick the best height to where I think they're going to be hanging out the most around the house, and put it to where it kind of hides this junction between the two, where the crossover dumps into the downspout. So I think about right there looks good. And what these do is just supports this face from being flexible. So once this is screwed together, it'll be nice and tight. So depending on metal gauge, how thick, how thick or stiff your metal is, and what else would be a factor? How long the downspout is. I usually put these between like 2 and 3 feet. So one of these will go here, and then I'll evenly space them 2 to 3 feet down from here. 34, 68, and 100 and, well, whatever, somewhere down there. Okay, so there we have it. We're kind of waiting for landscaping to do. We're going to do an extension on this, but you could run these into a pipe, anything you can do with a normal downspout. So we got our elbow on. I'm probably going to make those consistent around the house, that 6 inches that we measured on those, just so they all look the same. Then 35-degree crossover. Got our down tube, color inserts in. And then one thing I forgot to mention when we were installing this was instead of doing external clips on these, I just use steel roofing screws and go through the back of the inside of the downspout, so it kind of looks like the downspout's just floating there. I really like the look of that. So, and I mean, they're made for steel roofing, so they're made for, to seal water. So they work good. And there you have it. Turned out good. Taken me 15 years, but finally getting decent at these things. So hopefully you guys can learn something from this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe. See you on the next one.